What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today I have another tips video for you guys, and this one is going to be more of an extension of a previous video that I did. A couple months ago I did a video about franchise tips, and in the video I talked about some playbooks and schemes. Since that video dropped, I've had a lot of questions regarding playbooks and schemes and how they affect things and what to look for. So I figured maybe I should take that video chunk and make it its own video, because there is a lot to cover when it comes to playbooks and schemes. And I should also preface this with saying, if you're here because you're playing in a user league, like you're playing the game, unfortunately this probably isn't going to help you as much, because this is geared towards computer versus computer. So watching in slow sim and just sort of being the general manager, how it affects things when you have that element in play. Because when you have a user play, really nothing matters, because you can run anything you want. It's at the end of the day, on offense at least, it's up to you to make the plays. Maybe defensively, it's not the same, but offensively, there is a very, very drastic difference between how the playbooks and schemes affect things than they do in user play. So I just wanted to put that out there. Hopefully you still watch, and maybe you might find something else that you didn't know about playbooks and schemes, but overall, this is geared towards people who play the way that I play on my franchise and just in general. I always choose the Vikings because the Vikings are my team, so that's the team I always use when I'm doing these videos. And looking at the Vikings, you can see they have West Coast zone run, 91% scheme fit, and they have a base 3-4, which is a 96% scheme fit. Normally, the scheme fit percentages really didn't matter, especially when you're playing, but in CPU, for the most part, if your scheme fit is high enough, the playbooks can work. But there is a couple of twists in there that you have to look out for, and some testing that you really have to go through to find the best fit for you and your team. Where it says West Coast zone run, underneath there's that paragraph of information about the book, and you can read this one. It says West Coast zone run is designed to utilize short passes to keep possession of the ball in the run game, right? So that is what the West Coast zone run is supposed to be. You also have to look at the offensive playbooks little description there. And it says in this one, this playbook is built on a power run West Coast scheme. The goal of this playbook is to wear down defenses by running the ball and passing to the short and intermediate levels. So this book does work with the zone run. You will also notice that there is a difference, because this one is technically a power run, while the scheme is zone run. And those sometimes can be interchangeable. There are certain aspects of playbooks that don't matter as much. It's really the play calling you get in them and how your players are going to play in those situations. So for instance, yes, this is a power run book and a zone run book, but if you've watched the Rams, or if you even watched the Vikings this year, they have a lot of zone tendencies. They still run the stretch plays, the toss plays. The running back can be an elusive back. You don't have to have a power back to make this playbook work, but that depends on the playbook. There's also ways where you can pinpoint what kind of play calling you are going to get, and I'll show you that in a few after we go through some of these playbooks and I just show you the differences you can see. So this one is a West Coast power run. You read it, run the ball, pass the short and intermediate levels. Now the reason why all of these books are not equal, even if they are the same scheme match, is in the description. Now let's take a look at this one. The Chicago Bears book is a West Coast power run, same as the Vikings. But the goal of this playbook is to wear down defenses by using consistent misdirection and passing deep frequently. So even though it does technically fit the same scheme, the layout of the book and the play calls that are going to happen are going to be drastically different than what you see with the Vikings book. So even though the same scheme will still fit this book, it does not necessarily mean it's going to play the same for you or be successful for you. So you have to make sure that you're paying attention to what the description says, because it's going to tell you a lot about this playbook. What I have noticed, there are some schemes that gel well with others. Same with playbooks. You can run multiple schemes out of one playbook, and you can also run multiple playbooks out of one scheme. So it's really, a lot of it has to do with the description, more so the actual scheme fit it claims to be. And if you look here at the Bengals, it says this is a multiple zone run, which really is basically a West Coast zone run, but a lot more emphasis on the run itself instead of all the passing. This one says using both power and zone runs while attacking defenses consistently with short passes. So you know this one is going to be sort of right in line with what you expect out of a West Coast book. But then you can look at a book like the Chargers, who are a multiple power run book. And again, same dynamic. So sometimes they can go hand in hand, especially with the multiple books. They tend to run both power and run, so they're sort of interchangeable when it comes to that aspect. But if you look at the description, it actually reads pretty much the same, but a little bit different than the other book we just saw with the Bengals. It used to both zone and power run plays while frequently throwing screens and short passes. So this is still a short passing book, but it's got a little bit more of screenplay involved, and it leans more towards the power run. What I have noticed though is that the power run books generally just mean that they're going to have a little bit more I formation, and they're going to have a little bit more dives and like the halfback blasts and those kind of things. They're going to sort of shy away a little bit from the stretch plays. And that's why they can sort of interchange with each other, because the tendencies are still technically the same. And honestly, sometimes it really doesn't make a difference what kind of running back you have back there. So again, you guys got to play around with this. Now let's focus a little bit more on the schemes instead of the playbooks, because the scheme is really what dictates how the book is going to be called. What I mean by that is I can run, let's go back to the Vikings book here. I can stay in a West Coast zone run for this book. But this book, and please, when I say this, it does not mean every playbook, because there's some that it works with, others it don't. I'll show you how you can tell the difference in a little bit, but first let me explain the scheme. So using one playbook, you can sometimes run multiple schemes to get variations of play calling done your way. You have to be careful with this though, depending on the kind of quarterback you have, and also depending on the kind of line you have, because it can make them play differently. And what I've noticed is if you have guys playing out of scheme fit in CPU versus CPU, it's almost like their awareness drops. You know, it seems like they just don't play, like they don't know what they're doing out there. So you have to be careful. You have to test multiple tests to find something that works, because every game is going to be different. But here with the Vikings book, we know that they are going to run the ball past short and intermediate levels. So we know that short, intermediate, and running are involved. Pretty much all phases of the game. It's not stopping itself short at short passes. It's not saying passing deep or a bunch of play action use. So we can play around and we can maybe go to a West Coast power run. There's still an 83% scheme fit, and it fits. Some books, you can even switch to a vertical scheme. And what this will do is it can allow more deeper pass concepts to be called while you're watching your game, as opposed to when you're in the West Coast zone run. It also might cater more towards the passing rather than the running. You can also run a multiple zone, or heck, even a multiple power run. It doesn't look like the Vikings have a very balanced enough team to run it though, but the key positions are in play here. And that's another important part, is the key positions that are fitting. You can play around with this stuff, see what works for you. Some of them might work, some of them might not. And the key positions that I was referring to is the quarterback and the line is number 1 and 2. Quarterback is always number 1. If your playbook does not work with your quarterback, you're going to have a bad day. Because even if the running game works, you have to have the pass game. And there's going to be books where you can find where you can pass the ball without issue, but you can't run to save your life. And you're going to find books with the opposite. You're going to be able to run at will, but the passing game is going to be mediocre or less or worse, and you're going to have interceptions and, you know, sacks and just everything bad about what you can think of can happen. So that's why it's very subjective and it's very different. Nothing is the same. There is no singular blueprint to putting together a game plan in CPU versus CPU. That's part of the reason why I love it so much, because you have to look into it. You have to study. You have to be being weary of who you're bringing on your team, how you're upgrading your players, how you're training week to week, which is another topic we'll touch on. There's so much that ties into this that it's the reason I really enjoy playing, because I feel like I have to actually think it out and I have to do my due diligence when setting this stuff up. If you guys watch my Texans franchise, you know I've gone through multiple playbooks, multiple schemes, and I'm still learning. I'm still trying to find what's best. So play around with this stuff. Find what you want to do. Find what works for your team. If you can find both of those things, congratulations. A lot of times you end up finding books in an area where you never thought you would go. I, for one, ran Green Bay's book for a whole Madden 22, Green Bay all the way. I hated thinking of it because they're the Packers, but it worked. So you have to be able to look outside your comfort zone, have to be able to look outside of your own tendencies. Don't discount a book just because you think it might not play well. I've seen people have a very hard time trying to throw the ball out of the Chiefs playbook, but I've also seen people have amazing success using a book like the Texans or the Jets or some of these other teams that people just assume are going to suck because the team itself sucks right now in real life. But when you break it down to just a play calling, that changes the whole landscape. Be open about it, do due diligence. You'll find what you need, but you do have to put some work in. There is no way to just turn on the game, pick a play, or pick a book, pick a scheme, and you're winning. It's just not going to work that way. And you can change this up from week to week too. If you can find a book that is flexible and you can use 3 or 4 different schemes in it, you can sort of pinpoint what kind of play calling you get out of each scheme and then use that to better set up your team against the opponent you're facing that week, which is another big piece there that a lot of people don't think about. Just because you run a multiple power run doesn't mean you have to stay in one. Maybe that week you want to run a vertical power run because you don't like the secondary and you think you got some good passing concepts in your book. Don't be afraid to play around with it. It could work, it could not work. That's the beauty of playing CPU versus CPU. Some of these other ones like spread and like air raid and pistol, they can work, but you have to have a quarterback that can play it well. I got away with playing pistol formation with Bullard, who was my drafted quarterback on the Vikings franchise last year. He was a scrambler, so it worked. Some of them will not work, and you have to be careful because if you have a quarterback that can't run and you pick a scheme that has like a scrambler archetype, it's going to end up being bad for you. It's just not going to fit. So be wary of the archetypes your players are, the scheme fit that they're associated with, and then also just trial and error until you can find something that works for you. Don't be afraid to ask me any questions down below. I can't guarantee I can answer them or know the answer, but I do this quite a bit. I've done this on the RFL. If you guys don't know what that is, go check it out on the featured channel that I have on here. It's a great league. We run the game just like this, and so for the past 4 years in 4 Maddens, I've been studying this stuff to try to get my team to be in the best position possible. So I would like to think I know a little bit more than some people just because this is what I do all the time, but by no means am I the expert at all. I'm just hoping to help somebody out, maybe who is trying to experience the game in a different way, or maybe likes playing this way but just can't get things to click for them. I'm hoping that I can help you guys out. So let me know down below if this is helping, if you have any questions, whatever the case may be. The last piece I want to touch on before I go to the other portion of figuring out what playbook works for you is the vertical books. The vertical books are very, very volatile. What I mean by that is they can be great, but they can also leave you sort of in that rhythm of just chucking it deep every other play. And it can make your quarterback too reliant on the 3rd and 4th read and waiting until the very last second to throw the ball. It can lead to more sacks. It's not the best book to be using, but if you have a strong line and you have a good quarterback that can stand in the pocket, don't be afraid to check it out. Also, what I have done is I've used a vertical zone book to have those deep passing concepts, but I'll run it out of like maybe a pistol or a West Coast spread, West Coast zone run to try and dial back how much vertical passing is going on so you still get a good mixture. And now I keep talking about another area to look at. I've mentioned it a few times. There's a way you can see what your book is going to run before you even run a play in an actual game. And in order to do this, you have to go back to the main menu in Madden. So if you go back to your main page, the main menu, and you go over to the little icon here and you click on Playbooks, you can actually see what every playbook is designed to call in a game situation. And a lot of people will overlook this because who cares? Most people play the game. I don't need to know what they have in their game plan. But what you can do is you can see exactly what kind of plays you're going to get out of a playbook and the tendencies on 1st down, 2nd down, 3rd down, all the other different schemes for like if you build a custom book. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So let's go over to our Vikings book here. I think I went the wrong way. There we go. So what you want to do is you want to go either hit R1 a few times or just hit L1 once, go to my game plan. And now you can see the exact situational play calling that this playbook is designed and the star rating involved with it. The Vikings like to run dives. They have a stretch play, play action on 1st down, stick routes. You can see what you can expect to have called while you're running this playbook, which is a huge advantage, just an absolutely huge advantage. It has saved me a lot when it comes to looking for my playbooks. Sometimes I'll just start looking at this screen before I even touch playbooks and start simming games, because I have a certain way that I think my team should be playing based off of the people I have on the team. So I'll come here and I'll just start looking through. First down, okay, there's some nice deep passing concepts. I like the running in the middle. I'm not a big stretch guy. I don't like the halfback stretches in this game. It doesn't seem to work very well in CPU play, so I tend to stick away from it. And then you can go to second and long. What are we calling in second and long? Okay, short passing, deep passing, short. I think another very important part of looking through this is looking at your third and long play calling. There are some books, a lot of them, that have nothing but verts being called. You can see here, we got 4 verts, verticals, inside high-low, but essentially you're looking for a deep route. Dagger's a good play. A lot of almost Hail Mary type plays. And then down here, you'll see that there's half stars, which is telling you that these plays up here, the one with 3.5 stars, are going to be the majority of what's called. And then these are going to get trickled in depending on the situation and how often you're in these situations. And what I can do as well is you can actually adjust these if you want to make your own custom book. So you've seen what the Vikings like to do here. Now let's go and check out a playbook and see what kind of play calling they will get instead of what the Vikings will get. All right, so now we are looking at the Buccaneers game plan. And then looking down this list here, the one difference that I see is a much bigger emphasis on the run game on first down. The Vikings had a sort of a mixture, but I think it leaned more towards the passing than it did the running. But here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 plays. All of their top plays, the 3-star plays, are all runs to the inside. If you run this book, you're gonna see running on first down, probably almost 90% of the time. So right now, I actually really like this Buccaneers layout for first down. Going to second and long. This is after the first down, of course, that gets you 1 or 2 yards. You can see that they do not want to rely too much on the run. They want to go back to the air, which is a big tell. I've seen a lot of books where they try to run it way too often on second and long after the first down run did not work, and you end up in a very bad third and long situation. So the fact that this book right here, I don't like the screens though. The screens are very difficult to get to work in CPU play. I don't know if you guys have saw that or even maybe played against it. Usually the screens are not set up properly. The quarterbacks don't throw it in time. The running backs don't go to the right spot. The linemen don't pick up the blocks correctly. So it is a very hit and miss thing. Luckily, there's only a couple here. But then here you see at the very bottom, they do have some options for running. But you should see more of passing instead, since all of these are the 3 plays, the 3-star plays, and then at the bottom they have some extras here for running the ball. So this is a pretty good option, and let's look at their third and long now. Right away, I can tell you that this third down book is better than the Vikings, in my opinion. I don't see a bunch of verts right here. I see 1 verts play, 2 verts plays, but they also don't hold you to something. They all only have half stars. There's nothing that here that is supposed to get called more than the other, which leaves it open to interpretation, which I really, really like. So you can see the corner strike, X follow, the slot out, which that is more of a deep concept, but you do have the underneath routes on both sides. 4 verts, I don't like it, but you're gonna find this in every third down and long situation in every book. They have 4 verts in. I hate it, but they have to have it in there for those serious situations. Like on 3rd and 20, you have to find a play that is going to take a big shot downfield. So you almost have to have them in there, but some books put more of an emphasis on them, and it ends up leading to you running a 4 verts on 3rd and 7 or 3rd and 8 when you don't need to do that. And that's why you need to pay attention to this stuff, because if you don't, you're going to find yourself in a situation where you're going to be throwing the ball deep all the time, and you're going to find yourself punting a lot on 4th down. But so far, this book has a big mixture, which I really like. Another very big tell on the book is you can see that they run out of shotgun almost primarily on first down, whereas the Vikings had a lot more single back looks. But here you're going to run a lot of inside zones out of shotgun, which in my opinion works well, because now you're running 3 set wide receiver sets. You can actually have more availability to you because you're running those 3 receiver sets out of first down, out of shotgun, and still running the ball. I think those are actually more They seem to be more productive usually in Madden these days, the shotgun zone run plays, than the single back or even I form, because the defense isn't always set up in a situation to block the run. If you're lining up in I form, chances are the defense is going to be in their base set, whether that's 4-3 or a 3-4. And when that happens, you have a much higher likelihood, obviously, of one of them getting through and blowing up your run play. So running out a shotgun here on first down, to me, is a huge win. I might actually have to explore this book more. This book is set up really nicely this year. But the nice thing that I'm seeing here is I talked before about the schemes. You technically have to run a vertical zone run out of this scheme for what it fits. But looking at all the runs, you can probably get away with a West Coast zone run. I don't know if I would go multiple zone run because there's so many passing concepts, but you don't technically have to stay in a vertical scheme to make this book work, which is nice. Gives you that flexibility to change things up from week to week. And while we have talked about pretty much nothing but offense, defense does play a huge factor, of course, in Playbooks decisions. You have to have one that fits your team. So this is another tool that you can use. You can still use this for the defensive side as well. Now the defense is much more strict with the schemes you run. Like if you run a base 4-3 playbook, you can't just start running a 3-4. If you do that, your defense is going to play like idiots. You can't mix and match too much on the scheme side, on defensive side of the ball. You want to stick to, if you're running a base 4-3, you need to stick to that. Tampa 2, 4-3, cover 3, even quarters coverage, you could probably run out of that. But you don't want to get into a situation where you're running a 3-4 out of a 4-3 book, because your players are going to line up all sorts of weird. They're not going to play properly. They're going to be confused. And yes, that does happen. Players will act dumb when you put them out of schemes. So that's why I said you have to test, you have to test, you have to test. But looking at the Vikings, let's look at a book that I was using earlier for a 4-3. Dallas's Playbook. They run a basic 4-3. If you look at their game plan, you can see what kind of situations you're going to be in. Looking at this, they right away, chances are you're going to be running some form of a cover 2 on first down. Standard coverage. They have a 4 quarters in here, and then they have a lot of cover 1. I like this one too, man. They have some good mixture. A lot of times I've been seeing these playbooks where they have just like one, like the Vikings playbook last year, their defensive playbook, their entire game plan was just cover 3, like the entire way. It was just cover 3 after cover 3 in different formations and different types of looks, but it was all cover 3. This one has a pretty good mixture. I'm seeing a little bit more of cover 1 presence than anything else, which means to tell you that if you're going to run this defensive book, you're going to need guys that are good in man coverage. Because if you're running this cover 1 here, you need to have strong corners, and the linebackers you can see are also in man coverage, which means you have to really have some good pass coverage linebackers for those tight ends, because the tight ends are brutal in Madden. They will get open almost every play. That's of course normal. You can see what trips defense is, nickel, dime, I mean, all bunch of things. So you have to sort of look through them all to get a better idea. So normal was one thing. Now let's go to nickel. Nickel, a whole bunch of cover 1. Got some cover 4 here, and then down here below at the back end is cover 3. So primarily you're going to be doing cover 1 the whole way through. Unless you get too many play calls in, they're going to start going to some 4s, and then they'll drop down to cover 3 eventually to mix it in. But primarily you're running man coverage out of this playbook. And this is what I was talking about before with the Vikings book. If you go to the Seahawks defensive game plan, you will see a whole bunch of cover 3. That's literally all they run, is some kind of variation of cover 3 out of 4-3 out of the normal situation. And if you go down to the nickel defense, you got cover 6 in there, cover 4, Tampa 2. There is really no man coverage in this book at all. So if you don't have strong man corners and you want to run a zone scheme, the Seahawks 4-3 book might be it for you. So make sure you're looking through this stuff. Don't just go off of what the description is. Use the description, use the scheme the book says it is, and then use this here to figure out and pinpoint what this book is going to do, right? And of course, this is not the only plays that are going to get called. Like, there's not only, 15 plays in bunch defense for the Seahawks defense, but these are the plays that are going to get called primarily, which means you're probably going to see all of these plays, and then they'll throw in an extra play here and there that's not included in this game plan, because there's obviously more plays in this playbook, but this is what they tend to focus on. And then for guys that are looking to make their own books, I just had a comment before from somebody And it's actually inspired me to sit down and make this video because I just keep getting questions about how this stuff works. And I saw his question about, does custom books affect this? And I don't know if I have the right idea of what he was behind or what he was getting at, but I just felt like there is something that needs to be said about custom books with CPU versus CPU. They can work. I made it work last year. I've made it work in previous Maddens. I've done it for a long time, but you have to be very, very careful on how you build them now because Madden has schemes involved. And what I mean by that, you can't just create a book and have it work within your system. And the reason for that is this is sort of a little bit more of a, this might be deemed a reach by me. I have a feeling that in the back end somewhere, these books have some sort of coding as to how they play that you can't see. I know that there's coding on the back end of Madden for some attributes, or it's not some attributes, but it's like some ratings and other things that affect the game. And I believe there's something there with playbooks because you can't just throw a playbook together and say, well, there's a lot of slant plays in here, so I'm going to call it a West Coast zone run. So what I have learned is the best practice for making a custom book, and this sort of teeters on custom book and just modifying an existing book, is I'll go to an offensive playbook or a defensive playbook. I try to stay away from defensive playbooks unless it's very minor adjustments because it can go crazy with their play calling. But I will choose plays that are in the book that are not actually called in the game plan. And I'll show you what I mean. So this is the Packers offensive playbook. I have used this book before in the past. They have a lot of good concepts in it. But now if you go to, let's just go to a shotgun formation here. And let's find, they have eagle trips, which is, I really love this concept here. You can look at the Packers plays and you see for verts is used in a couple of situations. Packers stick is, but then you get to plays like this, halfback draw. Now I'm just using this as an example, not saying this play should be involved. I actually, if I'm doing a custom book, I will remove all the halfback draws and usually all of the screens out of the book completely because I never want them ran. So that's another tip. If you're sick of seeing it, take them out. You can just remove these things here. All you have to do is you go to game plan. Sorry to go off topic, but I just thought about that. And let's say you go to first down, you're like, you know what? I never want to run this stretch play ever. All you do is go to edit play and just remove it. It'll remove the stars and it'll take it out of the game plan. Now, will it take it out of the book? No, it will not. It'll still be there. It still could get called, but the likelihood of it getting called is going to reduce significantly, which could end up helping you out in the long run. And then on the My Playbook side of things, you can look through some of these formations and be like, you know what? I really want to run 4 receivers a lot. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to just start, like, look at this play here. Packers smash, not used in the playbook at all. It'll automatically put the scenario it's used on right at the top here and have the stars showing, like here, it jumps fourth and medium to the top because it's used there, but it's not used anywhere else. But you can go in and rate this play and you can add it to first down, right? I'm going to add it here. I want this ran on first down sometimes. So I'm going to add this 2 stars. I'm going to back out. And now if I go to my game plan and go to first down, you go down to the 2-star area. And here's your curl plays you just added. Now I can do this. But what you can also do, and this is what I do a lot, is I can adjust this to be exactly what I want it to run. So if I want first down to be run, I'm going to bump this up 1 star. Maybe I don't want Packers scat being called that often, but I like having it in there. So I'll go up here and I'll bring it down to 1 star. And then once you leave this, it'll save that situation in there, and it will affect things when you import this book. So the beauty of it is you can make this book, you can fit it to what you want, and then you can save it and upload it to, your franchise, and it'll still play within its scheme because you didn't change a whole lot, but you can alter the plays that are included. And what I've done before too is if you're really looking for certain plays, you can also go to your playbook and you can find, maybe there's a specific shotgun formation that you want to run. Maybe you're a fan of spread Y flex out of shotgun formation. If you look to the bottom right there, you can see plays in set 9 of 31. That tells you there is another, almost 20 plays that are not included in this book. So you can go to all plays. So now we're here in spread Y flex in the all plays, which shows you every single play in Madden that falls under this particular formation. and the check marks will tell you what is included in your playbook. And you can go here and you can adjust it. Well, I really don't want to run a screen out of this formation, so I'm going to uncheck that. And maybe I want to have X follow included, so I'm going to check that one. And I like having runs out of this formation, so I'm going to check the quick base. I want to have read option ability, so I'm going to have that in. I'm going to take out the draw. I would highly recommend you stay away from these kind of plays at all times in CPU play. I've never seen them work, ever. Maybe I want a shallow cross in there. And you can find other plays that are very interesting. Look at this Y cross format like play here. This looks really interesting. I want to add this in. I want a drive play in. You can adjust things by not taking away formations, but adding and subtracting to the formations that are already in your book. And what that does is when you go back to scheme fit it, they should still relatively fit within your scheme because you're still using the same components from that book, but you're making it your own in some way. I also know that I just randomly changed the first down here for like 1 star and 3.5 star. This again could be a reach on my part and maybe just assuming something, but I like to stick to what this game plan uses. So first down, they use 2.5 stars, and below that they use nothing. It was just all 2.5. So in my situation, if I was to adjust first down situations, I would only pick plays that I'm comfortable giving 2.5 stars, and then the rest is left alone. Same for every other one. I'm not going to make one for 3 stars, because if I come in here and I make a play for 3 stars and I don't touch any of this other stuff, on second and long, that play that I put at 3 stars is going to get called routinely over and over again because it's the top playbook or the top play in that situation. So you got to be careful with how you adjust these things, but you can adjust them to make them your own and still keep the book relatively the same, so that way your schemes are working and your players aren't playing out of position too much. So don't be afraid to go and check this out. You can look at any single book and find out all of this information that I just talked about and a lot more than that. I, of course, did not cover everything. I could sit here for probably 2-3 hours talking about some of this stuff. I don't think you guys are going to get that interested in it, and a lot of this is more so your own particular situations. What do you want to run? And the last part of that is, let's say you make a book, you make a custom book yourself. The reason that I very much want you to not take away or add formations is because under the manage staff feature, formation subs, I think, are one of the most vital pieces of your game plan that a lot of people look over. They just don't look at it. And I will once again plug this thing for free because I don't have no kind of sponsorships yet on this channel. But if you go to huddle.gg, and I'm sure there's other ones too, this is just the one I use. There are some websites that literally list every play that Madden has into the playbook. So you can go and you can look, or let me show you guys this. I know you guys can see my screen underneath, but I just wanted to pop this up and show you guys what I'm talking about here. So if you go, this is the site I use, huddle.gg. There is no promotion here going on. This is just a website I found. Me and a buddy of mine that are in the RFL found, and we use it all the time. But if you go here, you go to Playbooks and you go to database. You can click on any playbook in here. So let's go to the, well, let's stick with what we were working on. We were working on a Packers book. So let's go to the Packers. And you see every single formation that is included. And you can go here and let's click on bunch and every play art that is in the game. And the reason why this is important is I will come here and then I will go to the formation sub screen and I will match players up like this right here, bench pivot. Let's say I want Justin Jefferson to run this bench pivot play every time, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my Madden screen. So I will go back to my formation sub screen here and I'll go to shotgun and I will go to bunch. And now if looking at this, 19 Adam Thielen is right now in that position to run that pivot. If I can go in here and click in here and I can change it to whatever receiver I want. So in this scenario, I'd have to take out Jefferson. So I'll just, we'll throw KJ Osborne in there, come back here, and we're going to put Jefferson in that situation there. And there we go. So now every time I run that formation, Jefferson will be there. He'll run that bench pivot. And that's what I'll do with my playbooks in all of the stuff I do. I will line it up based off of who I want running the concepts that I'm seeing. And you can also almost make people targeted more. If you look back on the screen here and find where these red routes are, I'm looking here, I can see that there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different plays in this formation that run the primary receiver to the top of this trips package. And I can see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different ones for the outside receiver. But if you look at the left side where the number 1 is supposed to be, this is something I've talked about before. Madden playbooks don't always make the number 1 receiver get targets. I see one play out of this whole formation where your number 1 receiver is targeted. So that is why formation subs matter the most. If you want a guy like Justin Jefferson to get the ball, so you want to make sure you put him in one of these top spots here or on the side, because the left side here isn't getting any kind of play at all. There's only one play here, the spacing, where they are considered the number 1 option. Everything else, they're not considered the option. So go through this, find the playbooks that you have, find the formations you have, figure out which receivers you want to be targeted, and then match them up here in your formation sub screen to match what you want. And that way you will get guys targeted, you will put them in better positions to win matchups, and you know exactly what your book is going to run. And the reason why I said don't take away formations or add formations, because you take the ability away to make these adjustments, because this here is only going to pull the base Green Bay book. If I upload a custom Green Bay book and I have 6 formations added, it's not going to carry it over. The extra formations, it only has built in the base set. But if you're running the Green Bay book and you're running shotgun bunch and your custom book has shotgun bunch, your formation subs here will carry over to your custom book because it's all on the same team. So that's why it's important to find a book that has the formations you want, you don't affect them too much, and then make your adjustments afterwards. And I'm telling you guys right now, if you play CPU versus CPU, if you follow the steps that I'm telling you right now, you're going to turn your team into what you want it to be, and you're going to be able to control things a heck of a lot more. The last little thing that I want to touch on here before this video ends is weekly strategy, because this also plays a factor into how your team performs. Your game plan focus can have a big effect on the play calling that happens in your books. Now this is back to Madden 22, because Madden 23, I'm still learning. It's a new book. I know it sounds crazy. It's already November, but it happens. The RFL season hasn't started yet, so I've been doing a lot of work to get that up and running. I haven't had a lot of time to test as much as I would like to yet. But if I choose medium pass, chances are I'm going to get a lot more drop back zone coverage. If I run defend inside run, I'm going to get a lot more up to the close, but I might give up a little bit more in the deep middle part of the field. And my play calling will adjust accordingly. Same with your offensive game plan. When I ran blitz counter on Madden 22, I actually saw a heavier dose of running than I did passing. And when you run throw it deep, you're going to see your quarterback trying to push it downfield more often. So play around with it. Your team is going to change according to what they have. It's not all going to be cut and dry, but play around with it. Find out what schemes or what game plan focus works for you, because it could change from week to week, or it could change. You could just find ones that you just like the play calling in. I do that. I run blitz counter a lot on offense because I just like the play calling that it gives me within my playbook. And then your weekly goals also impact the game. So if you say that you want to sack the quarterback 5 times, it might mean that you run a little bit more blitzing. Maybe you try to get after the quarterback a lot more. If you decide you want to run the ball for 200 plus yards, you might end up getting more run plays called to try and hit that goal. This is a goal you're giving your team. So be careful with what you're choosing here. Make it realistic and work with your playbooks, work with your formation subs, work with adjusting the plays that you want to have called and the ones you don't. And I'm telling you guys, if you do all these things, you're going to end up having some form of success in CPU versus CPU. So I hope that I explained everything a lot better to you guys, and I deep dive the playbooks a little bit more. If you like what you saw, if it helped you, please consider dropping a like and dropping a sub, and turn that bell notification on. There's plenty more stuff coming your way from my channel here, including the Texans franchise. I might be doing some extra, I might try to do an extra series if I have some time. I'm gonna be doing some coverage on the RFL with my Explorers team. Also, when I have new ideas that I want to share with you guys, like this one here, I will definitely share it. So let me know what you guys think. If you have any questions, put them down below. Appreciate you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.